One.
I'm Rook. Today's day is April 3rd, 2020. We all hope you're staying safe out there. We're looking forward to when we can all reopen our locations again and get everyone back to work. We're living through some crazy times, and we assure you Arch will be back. This company has invested $1.1 million in our COVID 19 package for our hourly salary, front end, and corporate employees. It's our belief that by working together and sticking together, we will endure. Today's special guest is our very own Vice President of HR, Danny Ponzo, along with our other members of our panel, Michael Chi, Chris Stocker, and Zach Dykes on the ones and twos. Danny, how are you?
I'm good. I just Google searched what the ones and twos are, and yeah, I don't know what that is, but I appreciate y'all for being here.
Yes, sir. So can you
Good to
tell us a
hear.
little bit about what's going on? And after we can
Yeah.
do a Q&A with anyone who has a question. Also for the folks that are watching, there'll be a 30-second delay in your chat, so stay tuned. If anyone wants to participate during this live chat, download the YouTube app now. So, Danny, what's up? Can you give us an update? I know a lot of us are worried about what's next.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Rook. Thanks. So first, I want to just point out to everyone who's listening to this, and I want to thank Rook and Zach. We had this idea a couple days ago to do a live broadcast to answer a lot of the questions that have been coming in and kind of describe what's going on for everybody. And I called these guys and Chris and Mike, and they all just made it happen. This went from idea to execution in 2 days. So well done, guys. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the folks that are logged in right now and participating. We'll do this again if we need to. We'll do this as much as we have to make sure all the questions are answered and to update everybody. And then this will morph, like Rook said, into something hopefully regular to keep you guys in touch with the company, not only through this furlough period, but beyond when things are back to normal. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a presentation, and it's a rough presentation, covering some of the hot topics we've been getting in, some of the frequently asked questions. That's the first time I've ever said hot topic in my life. So we're going to cover some of the frequently asked questions, give you guys some definitions, and then Mike and Chris are going to help expand on some of the questions, and then we'll turn it over to the live audience to make sure we're addressing everything you guys have. Before I start, over the next day or two, we're going to be pushing out a few things that kind of mirror some of the information you're going to get here. We're going to push out a memo, a document that has a lot of these same frequently asked questions, but it's also going to provide some state-specific details concerning unemployment, how to calculate unemployment, the mechanics of actually logging in. The HR folks have been working a lot of hours going through and actually trying to enroll in benefits state by state by state to see where those sticky points are. So Keisha is probably going to get about 15 different state employment checks because she's almost enrolled in every single one. And then we're also going to put out a PowerPoint and potentially even a webinar where we can do this district by district, like we did a couple of weeks ago. We did a district call. We're going to do a district by district webinar where we're covering a lot of the same material. So however you best receive information, we're gonna cover as much ground as we can. All right,
Sounds
so
good.
Zach's gonna switch us over to the PowerPoint I put together, and again, it's a rough PowerPoint, and he's gonna take us to the agenda slide. All right, and so this is what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about what a furlough is and why Arts chose furlough vice any of the other mechanism for reducing our employment. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing to kind of assist people monetarily and financially through this furlough. We're not going to talk a lot about the state-specific programs, but we are going to talk about a lot of the federal programs that are going on, specifically the CARES Act and how that's going to affect you all. And all this is not designed to cover what the specific acts are, but it's really designed to cover how it impacts you and how it impacts Arch Telecom. All right, so that's the agenda. We're going to go to the next slide. Okay. So what is a furlough? And I know this is kind of wonky and kind of getting into the weeds of HR stuff. So a furlough is really for everybody's information, it's really just a temporary layoff. And it's all oftentimes due to an unforeseen economic circumstance. All right, it's not a reduction in force. It's not a layoff. It's not a termination. These are all terms we use that have specific meanings. All right. But a furlough is really just an involuntary, and it could be a short or a long-term a status for our employees because we have faced some economic challenges. All right. Specifically, those economic challenges are, and we know this, malls are closed. Everybody's on home lockdown. Everyone's socially distancing. These things are not good for our business, right? So in order to preserve our cash flow as best we can, and not lay people off, we chose a furlough. And I'll cover this a little bit on the next slide, why a furlough vice a layoff, all right? The big reason, and this is kind of showing my hand a little bit, the big reason is because it allows us to maintain a relationship, a payroll relationship, an official HR relationship with our employees. All right, so we'll go to the next slide. All right. So a termination or a reduction in force or a mass layoff is done to reduce employment levels permanently. Okay, so if you get terminated or if you're laid off or if there's a reduction in force for whatever reason, there is not an expectation for those individuals who are on the blunt end of that, or who receive that termination or reduction in force, to come back. Okay, you sever the HR and the payroll relationship there. You get a final check. In states where it requires paying out of your benefits, you get paid out. The relationship ends between you and the company. All right. In a layoff, you may get laid off because of economic circumstances, but again, there's no definitive timeline to come back. Right? Legally, in a layoff, if you hire people within 6 months, you have to hire those folks that you laid off back. Okay. A furlough is different than that. Oftentimes, you'll see agricultural workers, construction workers conduct a furlough for seasonal employees. And what that allows is that relationship to be maintained. So rather than completely terminating the employee's status as an employee, all right, and then going through an entire new hire process when that individual back, what we're doing is putting that person on hold because there is no work. And that's really why we chose this status for everybody. Because one, we want to maintain a relationship with our employees. That goes right along with our core values, putting our people first. Okay. And two, we know that we're going to all emerge from this thing in a couple weeks or a couple months or however long it takes. And we want to make sure you guys get back into your locations, back to making money, back to being part of this family as soon as possible. Okay. It also allows us, like I said, because we don't sever the payroll relationship, it allows us to continue to incentivize you all the best way we can. So we've already created a COVID relief package, which we're going to talk about. There are two parts of that. We're paying for your benefits, especially during a pandemic. If we were to terminate your employment or if we were to lay you off, all right, we wouldn't be able to continue your benefits going forward. You would have to be offered COBRA, or you'd have to the Affordable Care Marketplace to get your own benefits. All right, and that's part of our package. So it allows us to pass along monetary incentives to you all to help you get through this. Okay. In addition to that, while you're not working, it does allow us to have sessions like this, have the phone calls that we've been having, and anything else we're able to do to continue to communicate with you, because you are still an employee. A lot of folks are still calling HR, and we encourage that so that you still have a relationship with us.
Sounds good, Danny.
All right. We're going to go to the next slide. Okay. The big question, if I'm furloughed, do I get unemployment? And overall, the answer is yes. Okay. Every state now authorizes unemployment for folks who have lost work due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay. A lot of states offered it before. All right. But every state offers this. And this is both for completely off work, right? So we have no work and you're in a location and you're not able to come into that location, Or this is also for folks who've been reduced. So we have a number of hourly employees that have been reduced from 40 hours to 20 hours or even less. Okay, so depending on the state you're in, you're going to be eligible for a reduction in hours as well. Okay, and even a reduction in pay in a lot of cases. So if you're a salaried employee and you received a pay cut, which all of our salaried employees have at this point, except for the front end folks, you're able to, depending on your wage, depending on your salary, you're able to claim some of those benefits for being partially unemployed or underemployed. And there's different verbiages that the states use. Okay. All right. The next slide is what's the government doing? And really what I want to talk about before I get into this is what are we doing at ARCH? And I've talked about this a lot. Generally what we've been able to do is give people a couple days prior to their furlough date where we continue to pay them. And we're aligning this with pay periods. So, for example, I think a lot of folks were their stores closed on a Sunday or a Monday, and the payroll period ended on Wednesday. We paid people up through that Wednesday, the last day of the pay period, based on what they were already scheduled to work. The goal of that, and this is Alex and Vic, this is the owners of the company and their generosity. The goal of that, knowing that we were going to be paid a week later, was to keep people whole at least through that first paycheck, right? We all see that, what we're looking at right now is an iceberg, all right? If you know anything about icebergs, you see the tip of the iceberg, right? And the majority of the mass of that iceberg is under the water, right? We think we're looking at the tip of the iceberg, especially 2 weeks ago when this thing was pronounced a pandemic by the World Health Organization. We realized we were looking at an iceberg, and we wanted to make sure that at least for those 3 days, that first paycheck they receive, okay, they get their full pay and they are made whole. And that corresponded with their normal commission pay as well. So that was the first thing the owners of this company decided to do. The second thing was, on the paycheck after, which is going to hit in 5 days, 4/8, right? Anybody who's furloughed and who's been impacted financially, right, in that first round of furloughs on the 17th or the 18th, whatever the date was, they're going to receive 25% of their average biweekly pay. Right, and I can go into details of how we're going to calculate that if the audience needs that. And then the second part of that package is when folks are coming back. It was originally scheduled for 4/22, the 4/22 payday. When folks come back, they're going to get another 25% of their pay. Right, the average. This is all to supplement what the expectation is for unemployment. All right, and I'll go into that right now, what people are getting for unemployment. Okay, at this point though, Mike, Rook, Zach, Chris, are there any questions about some of the things that that Arch has done for that COVID relief package? All right, looks like we're good.
Yeah, I'm looking through the chat, Danny. There's nothing there yet. I'm sure we'll start to see some questions.
I have a question for you, Danny. We had someone that said they didn't get paid for one of those days. Who do they contact about that? They think they didn't get paid when they're supposed to. Is there an email they can send in?
Yeah. So the normal HR email works. Okay, so you could always send your emails to HR. So if you're on the East Coast, you can email Tiffany Camacho. If you're on the West Coast, you can email Michelle. Keisha is always a good place to email. Everybody at this point has my email address or my phone number, and I'll give it out again. If you need me to at the end of this thing, I don't mind people calling me directly. And also, so you can call. It doesn't matter who you call. Somebody like if you call anybody on this this chat room right now, it's not a chat room. What is this, Rook?
House party.
YouTube house party. This live YouTube live. You call Michael Chi. Michael Chi knows my number. In fact, he calls me all the time. Does that answer your question, Zach? I mean, ultimately, my number is 949-697-8586, right? And this is going to live on into posterity, right? So I don't care if you call me at 2 in the morning. I'm not going to answer at 2 in the morning. You leave me a message, and say, hey, this is, Joey from, the Jersey location 3, whatever store you're at. I'll call you back, you know. So just call me and I'll fix it.
Hey, Danny. So someone asked, when is the return date? Like, when do you think we'll come
Yeah,
back to work?
that's a good question. So for a lot of folks, we've advertised that we're going to try and come back on the 15th. You know, and we may. Some folks we're looking at May 1st. Okay, so this recent round of furloughs we did, which was only a couple days old, we said with the dates we gave were April 2nd through the 29th, because that covers 2 pay periods. Really, it's the month of April, with an expectation to come back on May 1st. But the reality is we don't know. You know, everybody should be watching the news just like I am and reading the newspapers and going online, and you can see that they're pulling out charts and graphs. The reality is we don't know what's going to happen, and similar to how this thing unrolled by state, it'll probably open up by state as well. So, for example, if New York is expected to peak next week, in 3 weeks, New York may be relieving some of their social distancing orders, right? Same as California. California is supposed to peak in 2 or 3 weeks. So a week after that, 2 weeks after that. But really, there's no way for us to know. We're going to open any location as soon as we can, right? A lot of our restrictions are based on the mall closures or Sprint telling us we're going to close a location.
Okay. There's another question that came in. Izzy Jones, he says, is there any protection in place for people who are ineligible for unemployment?
Yeah, so let me go over some of the things the government has done, because if you were ineligible for unemployment a week ago, you may be eligible now. All right, so I'll talk about that. I'll talk about that now, and that might answer a lot of questions. All right, so there's there's 4 big things the federal government has done, either through the CARES Act or through the stimulus check that everyone should be receiving. All right, so I'll talk about the stimulus check first. When this first started getting addressed by Congress, they passed a law, and I don't know the name of the law right now. It's either the Emergency Relief Act or whatever it is, the COVID Emergency Relief Act. And pretty much what the intent of that was that the United States would send every taxpayer a check, all right, of $1,200. So if you filed your taxes in 2018 or 2019, right, you're going to get a $1,200 check, whether you're, Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, or whether you're Alejandro Hernandez, right? So it doesn't matter who you are. As long as you pay taxes, you're going to get a check, all right? And that number of that check is $1,200. And this is where Bill Gates and Warren Buffett aren't going to get it. And that is up to an individual filing taxes making about $75,000 a year, right? So if you made less than $75,000 a year and you're filing single, you're going to get a $1,200 stimulus check, all right? For filing jointly, the joint amount you could have made last year is $150,000, right? So as you approach that number, that $1,200 shrinks down a little bit, and we've sent out a calculator, and I'm going to send out a calculator again, so you can just punch in your numbers and hit the button on the screen, and it'll say, hey, you should expect to receive whatever it says. Okay. In addition to that $1,200 or $2,400 if you're filing jointly, right, you're going to get an extra $500 per child, right? So if you're like Rook and you got 7 kids, right, all under the age 16, right, you're going to get what it was, $3,500, right?
They have to be dependents, right?
They have to be dependents. So if you're a deadbeat dad, right, you're not eligible. Sorry, Rook.
Yeah.
If you're Michael Chi and you're an upstanding, citizen, and you pay your taxes, because Mike pays his taxes and he supports his kids. Do you have any kids, Mike? I don't think you do you?
I don't.
No, he doesn't support his kids. But let's say you're Danny Ponzo and you got 3 kids that you haven't murdered yet today. I'm going to get, if I qualify, I'm going to get $500 per kid plus the $1,200 for me and my wife. So that's a nice little stimulus check. The intent of that was just to inject some money into everyone's pockets as soon as possible. All right. So that's the first thing the federal government did. It's giving that stimulus check. And it depends on who you listen to. If you listen to Donald Trump, he gave that, he already put it in the mail. Okay. If you listen to Steve Mnuchin, it's coming in 3 weeks. If you listen to Nancy Pelosi, it's never going to come. It doesn't matter what your politics are. The answer is I don't know when it's coming. It should come at some point soon. And if you haven't filed your 2019 taxes, it's going to be based on your 2018 income.
Now let me ask you something, Danny. Is this separate from our Arch COVID package?
Yeah, this is a check from the Treasury, right?
So we're getting two checks.
All right. So what I talked about, the 25% payment,
right,
that's coming from Arch Telecom. That's not Danny Ponzo. That's not payroll. That's not, that's Alex and Vic, the owners of the company, are paying you guys an additional incentive, right? Because we want everybody to be able to feed their family, keep their lights on, and come back to work, right? So we know on the 8th, after everybody's been laid off for 2 weeks, it's been 2 weeks since everyone got a paycheck, people are going to be struggling, So they're injecting, they're signing a check for everyone to get 25% of their annual or their average biweekly salary. That's coming from Arch Telecom. This federal stimulus check is coming from the United States Treasury.
Okay, makes sense.
So that's one of the first things the government did. Last Friday, the president signed into law the CARES Act, CARES Act. Okay, and I don't remember what it stands for, and it doesn't matter, right? And what that has done is really expanded. The biggest impact it's going to have to archers, to our company, to the individuals that are furloughed right now that are applying for unemployment, all right, are three things, and they're on the screen. The Pandemic Unemployment Compensation, also known as the PUC. I was a Marine. I appreciate the acronyms. So the PUC is the first thing. The second thing is the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, the PUA, right? And then the third thing is the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the second one first, because that that corresponds with the question we had. So I'm ineligible for unemployment because I'm a gig worker, or I was unemployed before, or whatever the reason was. The Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, the PUA, expands eligibility for a lot of folks who wouldn't normally be covered under unemployment insurance. Okay, so if you applied 2 weeks ago and you were the first one in the door and you got a letter back from the state of whatever, California, Florida, Delaware, saying, sorry, you're not eligible, you may want to apply again because now the federal government passed a law saying, hey, we're expanding eligibility, specifically because of COVID-19. Okay, so that should answer that question.
All yes, right?
Sir. The first highlighted, the PUC, the Pandemic Unemployment Compensation. This is the biggest thing that's going to impact everybody. All right. So what the federal government does, because this unemployment is run by the states. Okay. So there is no federal unemployment. If I get unemployed tomorrow, all right, I go to the state of California because that's where I live. Unfortunately, I live in the People's Republic of California, and I apply through the great, amazing bureaucracy that is the state of California. All right. And the maximum amount I'm able to get is $450. $450. And those maximum amounts are based on how much I've earned over the last couple of years. Each has their own little black box that they use to calculate how much Rook gets, or how much Mike G gets, or how much whoever gets in Delaware. Okay. What the federal government said is what we want to do is make people as whole as possible. So we're going to add $600 on top of whatever you get per week. Okay? Mm-hmm. $600 on top of whatever you get. Now, this bill is 880 pages. I read not all of it, some of it, most of it so far. It's part of my nightly reading. I read to my kids before they go to bed. And so there's going to be some interpretation of this. Probably what's going to happen is the Department of Labor or the Department of Employment, or so the Department of Labor, the Department of Health and Human Service, somebody's going to interpret this thing. And the Treasury Department, they may adjust how some of the guidance they're giving to the states. But as of right now, if I'm Danny Ponzo and I apply to California and I max out their amount of $450 a week, on top, they're going to add $600 on top of that, so I get $1,050. If I only earned enough to qualify for $250 a week, I'm going to get the same $600 on top of that. All right. So if you're in a state like, I don't know, New York, where they offer $600 a week, or Pennsylvania or Washington State where they offer greater amounts, you're going to get $600 on top of that amount. Okay, so that's the Pandemic Unemployment Compensation, the PUC, right? And that's a provision in the CARES Act. The third thing that applies to everyone else is the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. And what this does is this expands state unemployment for an additional 13 weeks. Okay, so again, just like the max amount a state will pay you, right? California may only authorize 26 weeks of unemployment, whereas Florida authorizes 12, right? What this provision does, the Pandemic Unemployment Compensation, right, the PUC, this provides 13 additional weeks on top of that. So if your state only authorized 12, now you get 15. If your state authorized the full 26, now you get 39. Okay, so it expands the length of time you can be on that unemployment insurance. So those are the three big things the federal government has done.
So it's all up to the state, and each state has a different timetable on when they're going to get those unemployment checks out to people, right?
Yeah. So you have to
people
apply
are
to the
waiting.
states. Yeah, you have to apply to the states, and it's proven already to be a challenging process. All right. So last week, every week the government publishes new unemployment numbers, right? So new applications for unemployment. Historically, the highest number was like 600,000 new applications, and that was during the financial meltdown in 2008. Last week, we had 4 million people apply for. It's 3.4 million people apply for unemployment insurance. That would just completely eclipse the previous high across the United States. And just recently, 2 days ago, there's another 6 million folks that applied for unemployment. So in the last 2 weeks, we got about 10 million new applications for unemployment. So because bureaucracy is never efficient, okay? And two, these aren't the best and brightest folks working in the unemployment department in, Florida, right? They are overwhelmed. Yeah. Okay, you try and call the unemployment office. So because of that, there is going to be a delay. We expect a delay, and you should expect a delay too. But ultimately, right, the machine works, guys. And this is in no way meant to dissuade you from applying for unemployment. You guys pay into it. If you look at your check, you're paying for your own unemployment insurance. That's why it's called insurance, because you've paid into it. And if you are faced with furlough or unemployment or anything else, you should be able to take that out. Okay.
See if there's any more questions, or
well, let's get to my last point, and then we'll turn it over fully to questions, right? Which is we've got a lot of this. How is this going to affect my ESOP? Everybody wants to eat sushi on payday. That was a joke. I didn't even get a smile from Mike. So I should have worn my ESOP shirt. So the ESOP is the stock option program that Arch does, and it's a huge incentive. I mean, at the last count, it was up to $9 million, and everyone gets free shares of that if they've worked here for over 1,040 hours in any year. Okay, so the big takeaway from ESOP right now is the employees who who are already enrolled. So let's say you're Michael T. and you've been working here since you're, 15 and a half years old. You're enrolled in the ESOP. Okay, it's not going to affect anything. You remain enrolled. All right. But if you're Danny Ponzo and you didn't work here long enough to be enrolled yet, right? What happens if I'm furloughed? Well, obviously, if I'm furloughed, I don't accrue the hours. If I started in January, I don't accrue the hours during my furlough period. All right. But what I've been assured by Vic and Alex is if you come back to work for this company and you stay for 30 days, right, on that 31st day, they're going to accrue hours for you through the furlough period. So if you started in January and you got hit with this furlough in March, like a lot of folks, right, the next enrollment period is July or June, I think. You might not have accrued enough hours, but they're gonna assist with that accrual so that you are able to enroll if you hit that 1040 after they accrue additional 30 hours per week when you're on furlough. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. So at this point, that's the end of my ranting and raving, and I'll turn it over to you guys for clarifications and for questions.
Okay. So let me go through some of the questions we got. Ashley has been in the chat answering some of these questions.
Thank you, Ash. Ashley's been all over those questions.
Thank you,
awesome.
Ashley. Yes.
Is that Ashley Furillo?
Yep.
Yes.
So real quick, Rook, before you go into that, when we started this, everybody, there were a lot of questions about the T-Mobile thing. So the answers to those questions, like I saw everything from can I wear my T-Mobile shirt to work? No. To when is everything going to flip over to T-Mobile? And the answer is no one knows yet. But what I can tell you over the next 2 weeks, there's a lot of calls and meetings. T-Mobile is not a carrier who moves slowly. So as information comes out, we might even be able to answer more questions the next time we host one of these. Then we'll pass that along. But we are obviously really excited for the new T-Mobile, and we know you guys are too. And we're excited for you guys to come back to work, obviously, as well. We definitely miss having all of our stores open and having all of you here. So just wanted to throw that in there, and then I'll throw it back to you, Rook.
Okay, guys, now it's the portion of the Q&A. Is there any questions that you still have? We are happy to answer them. So we'll give it a little time and see if they're coming in or not. Let me find one or two that maybe we can talk about meanwhile.
Rook, I think one that I saw there that came through a couple times is, and maybe this, I don't know who the best person to explain it is, but people were asking about when this first started, an email was sent out, and I've heard 50% and 75% and 25% and how those work. And one of the things that I know. Sure.
Absolutely. So when we first started being presented with the idea that we're going to be paying a relief package, really Alex and Vic wanted to try and make everybody as whole as possible. But one of the things that most of the states require when applying for unemployment insurance is a 1 week waiting period. So if I get unemployed on Monday, I'm not even eligible for unemployment until the following Monday. And that's when they start paying me. Not when I receive the check, but that's when they start paying me for being unemployed. So they give you a week where you got to figure it out on your own. Initially, California and New York, I think, were the first two states to waive that 1 week period. And so when we were doing our calculations to try and see how much people would earn on average to make them as whole as possible, we wanted to count for that 1 week waiting period, either being waived or not. So if you are in a state where the 1 week waiting period has been waived, you're getting 25% of your average biweekly salary. Okay. If you are in a state where the 1 week waiting period has not been waived, you're going to get 50% because now you're going to be down an extra amount. So again, this is an intent. The intent of this is to make people as whole as possible. Okay. Since we made those decisions, 45 states out of 50, Rook, we still only have 50 states. So 45 states have decided to waive that 1 week waiting period. So the vast majority of our employees will be getting 25% of their bi-weekly base salary, right? If you live in a state that has not waived that waiting period, you'll get 50%. But one of the things the CARES Act did that I didn't mention is it incentivizes states to waive that waiting period, all right? Because a lot of this extra money you're going to get, the $600 and the 13-week extension, that comes from the federal government. Okay, so a lot of the states are going to go ahead and respond to that act and waive that waiting period. Does that answer your question, Chris?
Yeah, I just saw a lot of that kind of questioning coming across the chat. And then, Brooke, I'll let you ask anything else you see there, but that was a big one.
Okay, look, I'm gonna go through one or two. There's a lot coming in. Let me see. Eligible for employment with a combination of large. The CARE Act. All right, so Oliver D, he says, so the CARE Act consists of two checks, $1,200 plus $600, and is it added to the unemployment direct deposit? Because I read that the IRS will direct deposit to whatever bank account is on the tax return. I think that's true, Oliver.
That's a hell of a good question. So let me answer it this way. So you got to think of them separately. The $1,200 is going to come through a check, and it's probably going to come through a direct deposit if that's how you normally file your taxes. So when I go and file my taxes, I put my wife puts the bank account information because she doesn't let me have access to that kind of information, right? So my wife has the bank account information. She gives it to the federal government, and if we get a refund, then that federal refund will come right back to my bank account. So the federal stimulus checks are going to come through the same mechanism. Some people still get paper checks, right? And if that's the mechanism you normally choose, that's the Treasury is going to, or the IRS is going to, well, the Treasury is going to send you that paycheck. Okay. The $600 that you're going to get for unemployment that comes on top of your state unemployment, that's going to come through the same mechanism that the state uses. Okay. So you're not going to get a separate $600 check from the United States government. You're going to get your unemployment check with the $600 added to it. So it's only one. So in California, instead of giving checks, they give you a debit card.
Yeah, we get debit.
And they preload that debit card, right? It's going to be loaded with whatever California has determined your unemployment amount is, plus $600 per week. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that answers the question well. Yeah, let's see. I mean, it's different per state, right? Correct? So,
well, it's how you receive unemployment is different per state, but you will not, no matter what state you live in, you will not receive a separate $600 unemployment check from the federal government. Everything is being funneled through. So what's going to happen is the state is going to pay you an extra $600 and then bill the federal government, and the federal government is going to pay the state back.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I just got a question from Keisha. She says, "Hey, make sure Danny talks about reporting their earnings when they get their check on April 8th."
So this is why Keisha is my better half, guys. So she's my work wife because she keeps me in line, right? So thank you for that, Keisha. Okay, so most states have an obligation when I'm on unemployment that every couple weeks I have to report if I've earned any money. So if I'm unemployed and I start a landscape business and I'm mowing all my neighbors' lawns and I'm getting paid for that, when the state asks me 2 weeks later, hey, have you made any money? Okay, it's going to be the same when we pay you that COVID-19 relief package. So if I've been unemployed since the 18th, right, I got my paycheck, last week for the previous time that I worked, or 2 weeks ago. I'm going to get another check on the 8th, right? When the state of California comes knocking on my door and says, hey, have you gotten any money? You have to say, yes, I declare, and declare whatever that amount is. Yeah, Arch Telecom paid me an extra $500, right? You have to declare that. And that's going to offset the amount you receive from the state. So if I normally get $450 a week plus $600 from the boost, I might go down to $400 a week because I made a little money last week, but I'll still get the $600 on top of it.
Okay. Does that answer the question, Keisha? I think that does, right? Okay, let's go to, let's see, forgot to mention Arch COVID package when applying for unemployment. Is there any way I can edit Massachusetts unemployment application? I've tried and I'm at a loss. Tito, I think that has to do with your state. Email HR and they can definitely walk you through that.
Well, let me answer it. You may not be able to edit that application, but when so what's going to happen is you apply for unemployment. The state sends a letter to Arch. We acknowledge that, and we give them, because you reported your wages on that application. We validate those wages, okay, and we validate that you're eligible for unemployment, okay, because they ask us, is this all true, and we put in the right information. Or we agree with the information you put in. In 2 weeks, when they ask you about that package, you're going to have an opportunity. So don't worry about amending it. Just get the process rolling is the big thing. If you don't know exactly what you made per quarter, fudge it, put it in there, and they'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, I know for the state of Pennsylvania, Danny, just in going through the process, there's no way to edit it. Once you put it in, it's there, and then you're kind of doing the waiting thing. I mean, state like Pennsylvania, there's probably some PA people on here. It's hard to even the eligibility part when you go on the website. It's kind of like, hey, just file, and we'll kind of take it from there. Like, if you have questions, just file.
Yeah.
And I'm sure other states are doing the same thing.
Okay. Do you still receive $600 additional weekly payment if you're qualified for zero from unemployment? Some are having trouble qualifying.
So that's the thing. You have to be qualified for $1, right? So if for whatever reason I don't qualify, and I don't even know what that would be. So if I'm not officially laid off, right now, so if Danny Ponzo right now, I'm still working. I'm one of the lucky ones. I apply for unemployment tomorrow. I'm not going to get anything because I'm still working, right? You have to have a financial impact. If you have a significant enough financial impact, and the state approves your application and gives you $1 a week, right? You're going to get $600. You're going to get $601. Okay. So I don't know the specifics of your situation. If you want to give me a call, we can talk through it and I can help you out. Again, one of the three provisions expanded who is eligible. So if you were one of the early applicants prior to last Friday, when the CARES Act was passed, you may want to reapply or appeal that decision. A lot of states have an appeal process.
Dominic Lee says, should we have to report out commission since this money we actually earn from the month of February, commission we will get in April? So it's commission questions that are coming in.
Yeah, you're going to have to
imagine that's February. That's earned in February. Am I right, Danny? That's not like it was earned while they're on furlough.
Yeah, so earned and paid
or maybe I'm wrong.
are two separate things, right? So what the government cares about is when you receive the money, right? So for example, if you've been selling in December, right? Even though you earn that money in December, right? It gets paid by Arch in February, right, Mike? I think so. So let's say it gets paid in February. It's not going to be on last year's tax documents because it's paid. The government will tax you when it's paid. So it will impact. But again, what the government is looking at, what your state government is looking at is the amount of money that you've lost due to this, right? So if you're normally earning, I don't know, $10,000 paid because you live in Florida and you're just selling down there, right? And all of a sudden now, you've lost 2,000 of that per paycheck, so $1,000 a week because of this furlough, right? You're still theoretically getting an $8,000 paycheck, right? Because your commissions. So it might not impact you right now, but we know it's going to impact you next month, right? So you might want to, depending on your individual situation, you might want to wait to apply based on how much money you're expected to receive. Okay, but those are individual questions. If you're in that kind of a situation where you're making a ton of commission, good on you. Really, the goal of unemployment is to pay you enough where you're feeding your family and keeping your lights on. Okay.
Sounds good, Danny.
I'm getting. Sorry, Rook. I'm getting. There's a lot of questions on here about new hire rewards and everything. If those were earned before you went on furlough, those should be, from my understanding, paid the same way they would at any other given point. So, yeah, it's the same timeline. So, I hope that answers some of the questions. I've seen that probably 2 or 3 times on here.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've actually because we're not required to do any of that new hire training stuff. if we're not getting paid. We made some exceptions to people we furloughed and gave them, 5 hours a week, whatever it is, so they can clock in, do their training, and clock out and get paid for that hourly time. And then, for the training classes, and then that incentive would hit. And so we'll take that on a case by case basis as well. Talk to your supervisor, so your location manager, your district manager first. They can call us and we can make sure we arrange for that.
Another question I see on here was for Pennsylvania, and it's talking about the PIN. I don't know how the other states work, but I can speak to Pennsylvania, saying, hey, I didn't get my PIN yet. Because when you go on there and file your initial claim, they send you a letter with the special PIN so that you can log back in and do your claims. Mm-hmm. If you don't have that PIN, there's really nothing you can do. So that's the part I think that the states are struggling with right now, is getting all that stuff out, to get that PIN in your mailbox, that PIN number. So to answer that question, what do? I don't have a PIN, is, from my understanding, the state of Pennsylvania, I can't really do much of anything without a PIN.
Yeah.
From what I saw online.
And you have to remember, not only are they state bureaucrats, there's no incentive for them to work hard anyway. But in addition to that, they're completely overwhelmed by exponential amounts of folks applying for unemployment. And then beyond that, they're still dealing with all the social distancing too. So you have people teleworking, you have people coming in, probably have, the office that may be crowded now has 2 or 3 folks in there because they all have to socially distance as well. So all these kinds of things add on each other and really grind the wheels of government to a halt or to a slow crawl. So patience is going to be key here, guys.
Yes, sir.
And then, sorry, I just saw this come through from Rude Boy, that keeps saying, hello, yo, hello. It said, can we schedule this another time? Says, I got a shower. Can we schedule this another time? Our plan is to do another one of these, from what Danny and I were talking about. And if this works pretty well, we actually have a pretty good amount of viewers. It's something that we can maybe do consistently. So
yeah, absolutely.
There will be another one.
Yeah, we'll do it. Furlough unemployment Q&A, the shower edition.
There you go. No video for that one. Hopefully.
Right. Please and thank you. I mean,
Mike could wear his hair
should be
now.
live as well. So if you have the link to this video right now, it'll still be on the YouTube channel, so you can come back and reference it again in the future as well. If you want to catch back up on what you might have missed, maybe you missed the first part of it and you came in late, you can catch up on other stuff afterward as well.
Sounds good. What do you think, Danny? A couple more minutes?
Hey, I'll stay on as long as you guys need me to. If the questions wane, then that's fine. For Rude Boy, we'll definitely do another one of these and try and advertise it a couple days in advance, so you could have your shower scheduled around that.
Yes, sir. Well, this is the time, people, to ask any questions you need answered. We have our moderators online answering as many questions as we can. If there's any additional or more long-winded questions, they can be answered through hr@archtelecom.net. Maybe we'll go at 1 or 2 more questions, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, while we're waiting for questions to roll in, I would just like to comment on how good Mike looks today. Normally you're exhausted looking. I mean, you've just been
man.
Yeah. And today you look healthy, well rested.
Tough room. Tough room.
I know. Man, if we could all look that good.
Well, there was a question earlier about if we're sending cleaning supplies or protective gear. Sprint is sending cleaning supplies out there. There's gloves, towels, sanitizers. Arch is also trying to source face masks for those stores that are still open. So those will be coming. We only have a limited amount, but we're still trying to get our hands on more.
That's important.
Hey,
do you want to keep
a lot of
rattling off some questions?
Well, let me just add something here real quick. So I know everyone's heard about the N95 face masks, and everyone's going to Home Depot, and it's really hard to get face masks right now. It's really hard to get disinfectant right. Everyone knows this stuff, but there's a lot of organizations out there that are breaking out the sewing machines and sewing face masks, and there's cloth face masks around. So if somebody in this audience knows of one, or if there are sewers in this audience, let us know. we're willing to use our network to get our folks the stuff that we need. And again, we're not going to be wasting this. We're not going to send 100 face masks to a store that's closed. But if we have stores that are open, guys, there are still stores that are open and employees working every day, being exposed to this sort of thing. And we're not forgetting about them, and they have their own incentives that we've designed for them.
And
There
Ashley
was a
just
question here.
posted. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Ashley just posted, if anybody needs hand sanitizers and you guys are open, please email Ashley and she'll send some out to you guys.
There was a question here. If anyone knows the answer, the state of Florida waived the 1 week period.
They're asking if Florida has. I think right now the answer is no. Florida is one of the ones that has not yet. The last I looked, their website is terrible. I could be wrong. I would imagine they are, but Florida just recently enacted their social distancing like 2 days ago. So they've kind of been behind the 8 ball on this thing. I expect that they will catch up with the rest of the modern world soon, and come out of the Stone Age.
And Danny, this is really important for me to tell you. Chris Polito says Danny is the best HR director ever.
Thank you. And
I was just about to say that.
Chris, I wore a nice shirt for you today. Chris is my style guru, for those of you who don't know.
I think we answered all the questions, huh, Zach?
There's a lot on here.
Yeah, we're getting some
if you
repeats
go all the way
again as far as like when can we expect to be back from unemployment from furlough. A lot of that is going to be just depends on when things open up again. We have no control over any of that. That's not an Arch choice necessarily to make. There's bigger things at play. But we will communicate via Arch Up, via email, and via Q&As like this live to let you guys know any updates as they come available to you.
Don't forget to stay on Arch Up. Don't forget to visit our Instagram. We will be updating you periodically. Definitely.
And then if there's more questions, we still have over 100 people on. So if there's any questions we missed, and Danny, thank you. Not you, Danny Briglia was welcoming me back since I took a little sabbatical before. If there's any questions that we missed, feel free to put them there. We want to answer as many as we possibly can.
Let me see. Thank you.
We'll stay on here all night if we need to.
No BS, best company I ever worked for. Lots of love, guys. Washington State's website is terrible too. Okay. Yeah, a lot of the EDD websites are going to be a little outdated. You just got to be real patient with them.
Hey, do want to mention a couple folks. All you young people say a shout out. So I'd like to do one of those. During this challenging time, so we've got Michelle and Tiffany in HR. Guys, I'm telling you, they're getting stacks of mail daily this big, and they're working their butts off trying to get those back to the unemployment departments. So Michelle and Tiffany, thanks for what you're doing. And I know, guys, dealing with HR is challenging, but these guys are working for you, okay? And keep asking us questions, keep calling us, okay? We want you to, all right? We don't want you to be frustrated. Additionally, we've got Selena and Michaela and Raj in payroll. They're just crushing it, guys. They're holding down the fort. They're working through all these packages that, us, Alex, Vic, Darren, and Casey and I are designing to kind of help incentivize everybody. And they're the ones that are actually making it happen. So those folks, if you call them and talk to them, they're working hard. Selena's been in the office every single day. And I try and kick her out every time I see her. And so has Raj. So make sure you thank those guys. They're working their butts off for you. And obviously thanks to the four folks who joined me on this thing for putting this together. I didn't even know what YouTube was before I talked to Chris Stalker about it yesterday. So I appreciate it.
You know what the internet is, Danny?
The interwebs, yes.
The interwebs. John Gittler, my wall back here is not magenta. That is indeed red. So he said I had a magenta wall and I was ready for T-Mobile. I am ready for T-Mobile, but that is indeed red.
So there's there's not any more updates on the T-Mobile merger, right, Chris?
There's not. I mean, nothing at my level that I would know. I mean, obviously day zero came and we're just waiting for more information, and we're as excited about it as everybody else.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Someone asked
Michael
us how
Miller
we're holding up.
How we're holding up?
Yeah, I'm
great. Ready to run outside.
Yeah. I haven't murdered any of my children yet, so we're good.
That's
kids
good
are alive.
news.
That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's this question that came in, Danny. It says, Michael Miller had a good question. We both accidentally said we got the package from Arch this week and we aren't being paid for excess earnings. Should we just say we didn't get it next week? I don't know what that.
Declare the money you get after you get it. Okay? So if I'm filing for unemployment, I'm not going to project forward and say, yeah, I'm expected to get a check in 3 days, you know? Just declare what you get when you get it.
So they can apply right now and still be good, or they can apply after and still be solid as well?
Yeah, so if you're furloughed, apply today, right? That's the best advice I can give you. Okay? If I have 2 checks that came in the mail today, one's from the unemployment department that's asking me how much money I made this week, and the other one's from Arch with my check, I'm going to open the unemployment department and fill that thing out, and then I'm going to open my check and I'm going to cash my check. Make sense?
Wise words.
And then I'm going to declare that next week because I'm a man of integrity.
Yeah, right. All right.
Ashley asked Rook if you can come work in DEPA. We don't need any more people. You're cool in California. You like California too much.
I mean, our office is pretty nice, though.
You like
we got a nice office.
I don't know. I kind of like DEPA. I kind of like being over there.
They don't have In-N-Out here, man. Sorry.
Let's just acknowledge the significance of Ashley's question and that she actually addressed him by his name and not that strange guy with the camera. I mean, that's remarkable.
Yeah, well, I've evolved, I guess.
Here's a question. Do I need to change the dates on my unemployment claim as the return dates from furlough get extended, or would be updated once the unemployment gets the information from Arch?
Yeah, yes, you will eventually. You don't have to log in and change it on your initial application, right? Unless you're in a state that expects you to log in every couple of weeks, right? And I think Pennsylvania is one of those. But if I'm in California and they're actually sending me a letter asking me to declare if there's any change, at that point, yes, I'm going to say my furlough initially was supposed to end on April 1st, and now it's been pushed through April 15th. So yes, you have to declare those.
Okay.
We got a question here. It says, what's the link of the site to get the estimate? Do we have that link somewhere available, or we can let them know?
You're talking about the initial for the states specifically?
The stimulus?
I'm assuming
states. Stand by 1 second. Let me. Okay. I got it.
Thank you.
You don't declare it,
okay.
Your chargeback.
So the one that I have seen that's good is it's Forbes' website. So www.forbes.com, FORBES.com /advisor /personal-finance /stimulus-check-calculator. I'm sure there's going to be show notes or something. Does that make sense? I will send this something. I don't know if there's some kind of notes underneath this. I will send this to Zach.
Description with the.
We can put it. We can put it in the chat box if you email it to somebody.
All right, I'll email it to Zach right now.
Yeah, put it in the chat box, and also we can edit the description for it. Everybody watching this, and then we can also send up the link in our Arch as well when we send out the link again for this Q&A.
Yep.
All right, so I'm sending it to Zach and Stalker. Stand by. All right, it's sent. So out the internet, you guys will get it soon.
Here's a big question that nobody could ever answer. I think this was already answered, but I wanted to make sure. Do we have a plan if this returns in November? Sounds like it may make rounds again and become seasonal. Are we prepared for that? I don't know
Yeah.
that anybody. There's definitely not a playbook for something like this. This is historic, and
Right.
I would say if you get through something like this, maybe you're prepared to do it again. Our hope is everything's figured out. We could never guess what's going to happen if they get a vaccine next week, or
Yeah.
there's just no way
Well,
to tell. But
so Chris,
I
I
feel
think
like
it's
if we got through this,
important.
we get through anything.
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are lessons learned, right? In the Marines, after we do anything, we do after action reports where we document our lessons learned, and certainly we have a lot. Some of the lessons learned, I think, already, and all the location managers know this, is maybe I should have a couple extra bottles of a sanitizer, hand sanitizer. Maybe we're going to install or have available the plexiglass screens in front of our workstations. Maybe we're going to have some masks available. There's a lot of lessons learned so that we can protect our employees if this thing becomes an issue again in the next 6 months, right? I think there's a lot of concern about a second wave of this. Just like you said, it's happening in China right now, and it's probably underreported in China. I think good expectation, especially when you're looking at a vaccine, which is the only way we're going to kill this thing is a vaccine, and not being ready for another year to 18 months. Who knows? So the answer to your question is, guys, I'm a planner, I'm a Marine. That's what I've done for the last 18 years. And so if Alex and Vic think that life's going to be easy with Danny Ponzo after we get through this thing, it's not, because I'm going to be driving. I'm going to be driving all the departments to start making these wise investments in ways to protect our employees. And we have a plan. We know what we did well as far as when we made the decisions and how we communicated those decisions, and we know what we did poorly, right? Not communicating fast enough, not communicating effectively enough. Okay, and a lot of that lies on me. So yes, we will do better next time.
Danny, Izzy Jones just said, are we going to support employees wearing masks moving forward? I think he's thinking about the front end, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Any thoughts on that? Yeah, absolutely.
My thoughts are we will support our employees to protect, and we're going to work to protect our employees. That's number one, guys, for us.
Got about 92 people on. If there's any other questions.
Yeah. We're about an hour in, right?
Yeah,
a little bit over. Yep.
A little bit over.
Guys, have any comments on how this format works? As Danny said, we had a discussion the day before yesterday about having people on this live format, being able to show slides if we have them, being able to chat. I got to give big shout outs to Rook and Zach. I mean, trying to figure out how to make all this stuff work together on a live stream, 2 different coasts. We were going till, 8 o'clock last night, East Coast time, and just trying to figure out how this all works. So they really figured it out. But this is a great format to talk to, different people at Arch during this time, or maybe even after this time. So we'd love to hear how this is working for you too in the comments. If you want us to continue doing them, maybe not even on this specific topic.
They have no choice.
Well, you could not tune in. There's that choice.
We're gonna have.
All right. So, are there any more questions that we can answer, or should we just tie this in a knot and then,
I think
we have a little delay, so
down.
there's still some stuff coming in.
Maybe we
just want to make
sure. Yeah, maybe we could also cut the feed, and then we can still stay live, right? So we can answer some questions with all our moderators, right? Zach, we can do that.
Yeah, so if we wanted to just cut the video feed, we don't have to be on video wise, and just kind of have the live chat open. I can move us over to just the main logo for Arch, and you guys can still chat in there. We'll keep it open for maybe another 10 minutes. So we'll say about 4:15. We'll cut down the thing, but we're on our Q&A portion of this, but the chat will still remain open, so you guys can chat in the live chat with the moderators for the next about 10 minutes or so.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. If you have any additional questions, again, stay in the chat. You can ask there, or you can email hr@arstelecom.net. And we'll see you soon. Thank you for all the love. Thank you for you guys tuning in. It was a pleasure, and hopefully we get to do this more often. Thanks a lot.
So, Zach, we're going to be up still, and then we're going to have chat. Is that what's happening?
Just the chat, yeah. So all the video, we're not talking anymore. So, guys, we can't answer your questions verbally, but check in the chat. We'll answer you guys in the best we can.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.